Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, dear students, dear colleagues, professors, scientists. It's an honor and a privilege for me and for us. For me, it's a professor because I have a lecture of international trade today here to the students to the second year. And to the students from the first year, International Business Environment. I want to thank very much to other colleagues, promoters of this event. Mr. Panaku, thank you very much in this respect as a promoter of our event. It's a privilege for me to have here in front of such an impressive, let's say, group of attendants, audience, sorry. We have the honor to have here one of the most famous, your number, let's say, offer me the possibility to stop saying something, because being in such a number, I noticed the fact that our guest is well known in our community, in our amphitheater, but John Perkins is an impressive author of more than 5 books published in the most famous publishing houses, sold in more than few million of copies. And one of the books translated into Romanian is in front of you. Will be a privilege for most of us to obtain a signature. Before starting the event, thanking you again for coming today here, I want to invite to very dear, very sweet friends, partners of our faculty, Sylvia Ostrin, Vice President of the Heritage Association, and Alexandra Postelnicu, Executive Director to Rachmama, Grace too, and we have the opportunity today to have such an impressive audience, such an impressive guestship. Being an hitman is very strange. Being an economic hitman is very exciting. Having the confessions of hitmen could be very mutual beneficial for all of us. This is the sentence under which I will be, let's say, so proud to give the floor to John Perkins. But before, I want to give the floor to Sylvia and to Alexandra to explain as short as possible how was it possible that Mr. Perkins is here today?
Mulțumesc, domnului profesor, voi vorbi în română. Cu domnul Perkins am vorbit de zilele acestea, de o săptămână este invitatul nostru la România și am mai avut conferințe și la alte universități și domnul Perkins știe ce vrem noi să spunem. Așa că voi vorbi în română. Ce ne-a îndemnat în luptă să-l invităm în România pe domnul Perkins, Alexandra și cu mine, Asociația Pacea Mama România și Heritage Partnerul UNESCO, am considerat că este momentul oportun ca dumnealui, ca un mare expert în economie și un scriitor de mare valoare și foarte cunoscut, să profităm și noi de experiența dumnealui, să ne împărtășească din experiența din alte țări, prin cartea pe care a scris-o Confesiunea unui asasin economic. Când am citit-o, am recunoscut țara mea, deși nu era în carte. Și am considerat foarte, foarte important să ne învețe de ceva pentru viitorul nostru. Asociația Heritage Partener UNESCO a fost extrem de activă, mulți de aici din sală știu, în salvarea, pentru moment, dar noi sperăm pentru totdeauna în Roșii Montana. Noi am fost ani și ani de zile acolo și am reușit împreună cu alte asociații și organizații să punem acest sit excepțional pe lista celor 7 situri în pericol, ceea ce Europa noastră a făcut. Este un lucru extraordinar și astăzi este un proces împotriva Gold Corporation. Deci, chiar dacă se pare că e liniște, să știți că nu este liniște, se lucrează și alții lucrează și noi nu trebuie să stăm. Am avut marea șansă să lucrăm împreună cu Pacea Mama și cu Alexandra și cred că acesta a fost motivul pentru care am găsit rațiunea de a-l aduce pe domnul John Perkins, de a-l invita în România să vă însuflețească și pe dumneavoastră așa cum suntem noi însuflețite. Am să rog pe Alexandra să vorbească puțin despre Asociația Pacea Mama și experiența ei. Mulțumesc mult de tot! Și mă bucur că suntem împreună, într-un număr atât de mare. O să vă întrebați în primul rând ce înseamnă Pacea Mama. Cât dintre voi au auzit de acest cuvânt sau au o idee ce poate să însemne? Câțiva dintre voi știu. Cuvântul Pacea Mama este un cuvânt care vine din limba Cocea și înseamnă Mama Terra, Mama Pământ. Iar Alianța Pacea Mama din San Francisco a fost înființată în 1995 ca un parteneriat între un ONG din San Francisco și tribul de Achuar din Amazonul ecuadorian. Ecuadorienii, achuarii, au avut vise că un mare pericol va veni asupra teritoriilor lor și și-au dat seama că acel pericol sunt companiile petroliere care deja poluaseră teritoriul altor triburi învecinate. Și ce au făcut ei? Au cerut ajutor lumii moderne. Și John Perkins a fost primul dintre oamenii americani care a pășit pe teritoriul lor. John Perkins are experiență cu triburile Achuar și Shuar din anii 1970. Iar în 1995 am făcut o expediție de 12 persoane pe teritoriul amazonian, în urma căreia s-a născut Alianța Pacea Mama. Ce au reușit ei să facă, și mi se pare incredibil, este nu numai că a ajutat pe grupurile tribule Achuar să nu lase exploatarea de petrol pe teritoriul lor, dar mai ales din 2008, Alianța Pacea Mama a ajutat la schimbarea Constituției Ecuadorului. Ecuadorul a devenit prima țară din lume unde natura, Pacea Mama, Mama Terra, este considerată o ființă vie în legislație. Mai zic o dată. Deci natura, Mama Terra, este considerată o ființă vie în legislație. Acest lucru îl propunem să facem și noi în România. Suntem în parteneriat cu alte 10 grupuri din Europa și începând cu anul 2015 o să dăm drumul la o campanie pentru drepturile naturii. Se numește European Citizen Initiative for Rights of Nature. O să avem nevoie de 56.000 de semnături oficiale din România, iar la nivel european de 1.000.000 de semnături pe care trebuie să le înaintăm Parlamentului European. Deci, de acum vă invit să fiți partenerii noștri, astfel încât să aducem și noi legea drepturilor naturii în România. Este pentru mine o mare, mare onoare să am pe It's a great honor to have John Perkins in Romania, the co-founder of the Pacea Mama Alliance.
My connection through John is through the book Shape-Shifting and the World as a Dreaming. I heard about the economic movement later on, and I really admire of John, his expertise, the places where he traveled, the wisdom that he's bringing from all over the world. And I think it's an honor for Romania to have John with us and to share his wisdom and to travel through our beautiful places of Suceava, of the Bucovina monasteries, of Roșia Montana. We've done a lot in 5 days. It's been hard physically, but we did it. And now to be in front of you in Bucharest at this highly known, good university. So thank you, John, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alexandra and Sylvia, team. Thank you so much. Thank you to the university, the rector, vice rector who invited me here. And thank you, all of you, for being here. It's a great honor and privilege. I think this university is going to lead this country and, in fact, the world into a new era. And I know that the title of this talk today, I've been told, is about how the economic hitman meets the prophecy. So I will be talking about the prophecies. It won't be so much an economic speech, even though I'm in an economic school, university, but looking at these times. And as I've traveled around your country, speaking at, this is the 4th university I've spoken at so far, visiting Roșia Montana, meeting the people of Romania on many different levels, I've been deeply, deeply impressed and deeply moved by your spirit, your courage. I know there's depression. I know people sometimes feel that it's hard to move forward into this new world, but you're doing it. And what has happened in this country in regard to gold mining at Roșia Montana is extremely significant. And it feeds right into the interpretation of the prophecies of every indigenous culture that I know. That you here in Romania are leaders. You're leading the world into the era that's been prophesied. And I want to apologize that I don't speak Romanian. Next time, maybe. Next time. Thank you for tolerating my lack of your language. You, all of us, are born into perhaps the most amazing time in human history. This is the greatest revolution that has ever been experienced amongst our species, the human species. What we are experiencing right now is bigger than the agricultural revolution or the industrial revolution or the revolutions against the Soviet Union or the American Revolution against the British. This is a revolution in consciousness. We are waking up across the planet. In the last 10 years, I've traveled throughout much of the world: Latin America, Africa, Asia, Europe, Middle East, United States, speaking to audiences like this. And everywhere I go, I feel the sense that we are waking up to the fact that we live on a very fragile space station. But unlike the space station that our astronauts built, this one doesn't have any shuttles. You can't get off. I can't get off. My 7-year-old grandson won't get off. And we're realizing for the first time in human history that on this planet we're all facing the same crises. This didn't used to be the case. It used to be that some places had hurricanes, some places had earthquakes, some places had tsunamis. There were disasters, but only for the local place. Today we understand that the glaciers are melting everywhere. The oceans are rising. Species are going extinct. We're depleting our resources. We're realizing that we must change. We're realizing that we've created a global economic failure. Here we are at this very famous, well-known University of Economics. And more than anyone else, we must understand that we've created a global economic failure. There are many statistics. One that recently came out was that there's 85 individuals, 85 people who have more wealth than half the world's population. That's a failure. It's a failure to think that I live in a country where less than 5% of the world's population lives, and we consume 30% of the world's resources. 5% of the world's population consumes 30% of the world's resources, and 1% of that 5% consumes the vast majority. That's a failure. It cannot be repeated by any other country. Not by China, not by India, not in Latin America or Africa, not here in Romania. It can't be repeated. It's a failure. We've created what I consider, what I define as a death economy. Death. An economy that to a large degree is based on killing people. Military. 21% of the budget, the official budget of my country, the United States, goes to the military. 21%. Not to education, not to health care, to the military. And a large percentage of the rest of the world's economy goes to destroying the earth, digging up resources, the kinds of mining operations that you here in Romania have stopped at Russian Montana. But our economy is built on that, and you are understanding that it's no longer working, that it has to change, that we must move into a life economy, an economy that's based on cleaning up pollution. We know the oceans are terribly polluted, the rivers, the lakes, the soil, the air, polluted. So the challenge for you in the School of Economics and for everybody else in the audience is to create a new economy. An economy that's based on cleaning up pollution, on helping starving, hungry people across the planet feed themselves, on creating new technologies for transportation, automobiles of a different sort, for communications and energy, for marketing, for banking, new institutions, and that's the challenge that you face here. The future of our species depends on us honoring the earth, honoring resources, not destroying them. And that, I think, is what this university is all about. And it's what this country is all about. You are a country in the middle of the world, literally. I often think about how if you take the mountain systems of the planet, in Asia and Europe they run east and west. In the Americas they run north and south. The mountains of the world form a cross, connects the whole planet. You're right in the middle here in Romania. You're also in the middle between the former Soviet country, now siding with the European market and the United States. You're in a strategic location between Europe Asia, Africa, the Middle East. And you are confronting the forces that are destroying the planet. You are confronting the Gabriel gold mining operations, the Bechtel corporations, Chevron, which in my opinion is a criminal company. You are confronting this. You're in the middle, and you're a microcosm for the bigger macrocosm. And I'm going to talk in a moment about how what you're doing here in Romania has been prophesized for thousands of years by every indigenous culture on this planet. But before I do, I want to talk a little bit about how I think we got to this disastrous, failed economy, because I was part of that process. So officially, I was chief economist at a major consulting firm in the United States. Chief economist, but really what we were known as were economic hitmen. Why? Because the way we operated was to identify countries that have resources our corporations want, like oil, gas, gold, Romania, you know about this, and then arrange huge loans to that country from the World Bank, the IMF, other banking institutions. But the money would never actually go to the country. Instead, it would go to our own corporations to build infrastructure projects in the country, mines, electric power systems, highways, things that would serve the wealthy families of those countries, as well as our own corporations, the main beneficiaries, but wouldn't help the majority of the people. In fact, would hurt the people because trying to pay off the loans, paying the interest on the loans, would mean that you couldn't pay for education, health care, other social services. And in the end, you can't pay the principal. And so we come back to you, the economic hitmen, and say, hey, since you can't pay off your loans, sell your resource, your gold, your oil, your gas, to our corporations, cheap, without any environmental restrictions. Tear up the earth, we don't care. Without any social regulations. Make your people slaves if you have to. Don't pay them enough money, we don't care. And privatize. Sell your electric utilities, sell your water and sewage systems, sell your schools, sell everything to our corporations. That was my job. Was to convince the leaders of the countries, like yours, to accept these huge loans, knowing full well they could never pay them back, and use the loans to hire our companies to build these projects that would help a few rich families here, or in whatever country it was. And if the leaders of the countries didn't agree, then people we call jackals go in and either overthrow the government or assassinate the leaders. I had this experience in Ecuador, where the democratically elected president, Jaime Roldos, refused to take the loans. He refused to accept the corruption that I was bringing. And in Panama, Raúl Torrijos refused. And both of these men were assassinated. In the few cases where the jackals also failed, like with Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, then the military goes in. And what has happened from all of this is that we have created a global empire. It's not an American empire. It's a corporate empire. The corporations control Romania, China, India, Russia, the United States. Basically, today we have corporate control around the world. It isn't a conspiracy. These corporations don't get together, the leaders of the corporations, and conspire to do something illegal. They don't have to. They're all driven by one single goal, and that is to maximize profits regardless of the social and environmental cost. That was not the goal when I was in a school like this one in the United States. When I was studying business administration and economics in the United States, I was taught in the late 60s, a long time ago, that the goal of a corporate executive is to make a decent rate of return for investors, but also, and more importantly, to create a good, ethical corporation, to pay employees a decent salary and give them health care, health insurance, and retirement funds. To take a cut of salary, the executive is told, you cut your salary before you lay people off. And to be a good community citizen, to help the school system, to pay money for schools, recreation facilities, to take care of the community. That all changed in the 1970s when Milton Friedman won the Nobel Prize in economics by saying, in short form, the only responsibility of business is to maximize profits, regardless of the social and environmental cost. Don't you buy that here in this school. That's not the responsibility of business. The true responsibility of business is to serve the people. Business needs to make a decent rate of return on capital to get investors, and we need investors today. We need growth. There are starving people. There's terrible pollution. We need people to invest in ways to clean up pollution and to make a better world for my grandson and for every other child on this planet. In Romania, in Indonesia, in Bolivia, in the United States, wherever, everywhere. We need investors, but we need people to invest in corporations that are committed to making a better world. And I have to say, for you business students, there's a great precedent for this. In the United States, for the first 100 years that we were a country, no corporation could get a charter to operate unless it proved it was going to serve a public interest. It didn't have to prove it was going to make a profit, just that it was going to serve a public interest. And the charter lasted on average for 10 years. And then the corporation had to go back and demonstrate that it had served the public interest and guarantee that it would continue to do that. That all ended in the late 1800s when we had the robber barons and our Supreme Court in the United States decided that corporations had the rights but not the responsibilities of individuals. We, on this planet, across the globe, in appropriate action every day to creating a better world. And I say thank God that you're here. Thank you for being here. And I look forward to going through this amazing time with you. Thank you. Do we have some questions? Well, if we don't, I can just repeat the question. Yes. Stand up, please. Give your name over here. Andrea. Thank you. So the point was made about Chevron, the fact that Romania is quite independent now already of energy. And Chevron's here. How do the people of Romania deal with the fact that there's threats if they don't accept Chevron, including threats from the United States? That was the assertion that stated in convention. Right. They'll build a shield to protect Romania from Russia if Romania accepts corporations like Chevron. I think what you need to do is for the Romanian people to really speak very loudly, go to the media, form organizations. I think you have passion here. This is part of your passion. So be a leader and get people together to write letters, to speak out in every way you can, to demonstrate, and to let the world know that you do not accept Chevron. And you can use the Ecuadorian case as a good example. So here's a company, Chevron in Ecuador, polluted a whole vast area of the Amazon. And they were taken to court by 30,000 Ecuadorians, class action suit. Chevron lost. The courts of Ecuador, and went all the way to the Supreme Court, demanded that Chevron pay $9.5 billion to clean up. Chevron's refusing. BP, on the other hand, British Petroleum, has already paid more than $28 billion to clean up their oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. The oil pollution in Ecuador was 85 times worse in the Gulf of Mexico, and it wasn't an accident. Chevron, Texaco, which is now owned by Chevron, did it purposely. And they will not pay. So I think you speak out to the world and say it's totally unacceptable for a company that is a criminal organization. It's still killing people in Ecuador. There's 1,400 people have died from these oil spills. And there's people dying every day. You will not accept them in Romania. So it's a beautiful example of a time when you can take opportunity and say, look what these other countries have done, and vote for the same laws here. Make it happen. Don't be discouraged. They've done it in other countries. You can do it here. I think you can take a good leadership role in that regard. And other people here who've just heard her speak who want to join forces, come and get together, talk, join forces, work through Pachamama in Romania, work through Heritage, work together, bring people together. Force them, fight them, I'll help you. I'm glad to come back and keep talking about this. I've done this in other places, and I'll do it here. It works. It truly works. Don't get discouraged. Thank you. We got somebody over here that hand up? Yes. We don't have another microphone over here.
I'm also addressing the media institutions
and I don't know who is here from the media, but we do have a biased presentation of these subjects. Also a question regarding, let's say, how to get your message across to the government, because you said, tell that to your government. We tried so many times, I mean, we've done so much. We protested on the street, and you're now saying that the Roșia Montană project was stopped. It was stopped for a short time. They are now preparing other laws in the parliament that will have the power of 100 times Roșia Montană, so giving the same rights that they were trying to give last year to gold corporations, to all the mining companies in Romania. And also, the question is how to make your message come across to a government who doesn't want to listen to you, and who does everything to silence you down, and media is playing in this game.
You just spoke up here, and we need to keep doing that. The government can't keep you down. You know, it's easy to say we can't do it. It's easy to find reasons why the government isn't allowing that, but we have to take that responsibility. For most of my lifetime, my country opposed the Soviet Union, and we were told the Soviet Union would never collapse. The Soviet Union would always be there. It's not here anymore. You were part of it. You're not anymore. That's a miracle. Miracles happen. So have the faith. You can speak to your government. Keep speaking. Keep speaking. You are a country of miracles. You have a saint whose birthday you just celebrated 2 days ago, who created miracles. You have a priest, his name is Boga, who was alive during the lifetime of many of you, created miracles. I've traveled around, I've been to churches in this country where miracles happen. You can create this miracle. You can keep Chevron out of here. Yes, the mines, it's a temporary injunction, but you can make it permanent. And the people out there, Roșia Montană, that I just visited 2 days ago, they're determined. They say it's not temporary, it's forever. This country will never flood that river with cyanide, flood that valley with cyanide. You can make miracles happen. You're a country that believes in miracles, you're a country that's experienced many miracles, you've been a leader in miracles. So, now is the time to make the biggest miracle of all happen. The miracle of moving to a new era. Of moving to the era of Punapu, bringing the eagle and the condor together, to change this, to go to moving from a death economy to a life economy. Thanks.
Having in mind that you are also invited in front of my students, I want to propose to you a game. Put yourself in the shoes of a young student and design the main pillars of a personal career development plan.
Okay, it has to be personal. Thank you, Dean, for suggesting that. Thanks for your microphone. You're all different. If I were designing my own personal plan, I did not follow my passion when I left college. I became an economic hitman. My passion was always for writing. And I wanted to write about economics, but I didn't do that. Instead, I went out and became chief economist and economic hitman. I didn't follow my heart until many years later, and now I do. And now I'm prosperous and happy, not rich, but prosperous that way. So what I would say for your plan, really look at what your heart's desire is. What do you want to do? Do you want to be the person to develop new energy sources? If so, be an entrepreneur. Make it happen. Do you want to be the person to lead this country in standing up to the corruption of politicians? If so, start to make your own development plan. How can you make this happen? And you know, today with Facebook and Twitter and the internet and simultaneously communicating with each other across the planet, it's easier than ever to do these things. You can all do what it is you want to do. So thank you, Dean, for asking. And I can only speak for myself that if I were to do it over again, I would say as soon as I get out of school, I'm going to start writing about global economics and travel the world and writing about these things. I didn't do that for a different route, and now I'm doing it. But for each of you, start now. Start as young as you can. Really look at what's your passion and make it happen. I am totally convinced that when we make a commitment to our passion, God, the universe, conspires to helping us, really helping us. I know it happens. And that's what all the miracles of this country have told us too. So each of you make your own plan tonight. Make your plan as to how to move forward, but make sure it's following your passion. Thank you.
I have a question for you. My name is Robert. I study marketing, and I read your book. If they change their policies, we should change them. We should change the policies too. That's the question. If they change their policies,
They being who?
the corporations, the governments, we should change the game.
Right.
I think it's a solution. If they put too many knobs, we should have something. If they move, we move again.
Thank you. I totally agree that we have to do what it takes to get them to change the policies, to move from this idea of a just economy, the idea of maximizing profits at whatever cost, into an idea of creating a life economy, creating a world of all. And we have to keep pushing and pushing. And every time they push back, so when the government pushes back, or when the government doesn't listen, you don't think they're listening, take that as strength, that's energy coming your way. Be a martial artist. I've been a martial artist all my life. I know that when somebody throws a punch, when somebody attacks me, I just have to use that energy to go back against them. So when the government attacks you, when the corporations attack you, take that energy and realize that they're doing it because they're desperate. They're afraid of you. They are afraid. They want to change. It's time to make them change. And all the corporate executives that I know really want to see a change, but they have to be told by you that you want to change. Because you know what they've heard from us in the past? They've heard we want cheap clothes, tennis shoes, and that has to be made by slaves someplace in the world. We should look the other way. We want cheap petroleum for our cars, and that means destroying the Amazon or Romania. We'll just look the other way. We have to send a new message. We want a better life for the planet, for our children, and for ourselves. Thanks. Somebody else got a microphone? Yes.
Hello, my name is Dragos. I just want to ask you what is your position as an economist about John Fresco idea. If you know resource-based economy, John Fresco idea. As an economist, if you
A research-based economy?
a resource-based economy on
Resource-based.
an economy without money, it's the Zeitgeist documentary presented that idea, and I saw you in that documentary, if I remember well.
Resource-based currency, basically, like the currency, the money system.
Yes,
As opposed to a central bank.
yes.
Yes. Right. Right. I think it's a great idea. In theory, we have to make it work, though. I think the central banking idea, like most of the central banks of Europe and like the Federal Reserve of the United States, which is all based on interest and debt, and owned by private individuals or private banks, like it is in most of Europe, is terrible. It's a robber baron system. We need to move into a resource-based economy. We need to make that happen. And I think you have the passion to work on that. And I think you do over here too. So you guys get together and make that happen. I mean, this is what it takes. You have to do it. You have to do it. We have to do it. We've got to make this work, and it's exciting. There's nothing better in life than to follow that passion and make it happen. You make it happen. Go for that resource-based economy, that resource-based currency. It'll happen. You can make that happen. Thank you. Do we have something else I would like?
Hello, sir.
All right.
Hello. Hi, this is Mihaela. I believe that the real change is really from inside. And in the moment that we start enriching our inner universe and envisioning a different life and a different reality, envisioning first, this will unite us, not only over a glass of beer or wine. When in the moment of euphoria, we believe that we can make changes, and then the next day comes and we didn't drink our coffee, we just jump at each other with a really bad attitude. I think, as the workshop here suggests, that we need to do a daily meditation, and that's in our intimate, personal space, and that will bring a new vibration. And people on that vibration will naturally meet without any effort and will start making real change. Probably half of the people here don't belong in this institution, and they belong on the ground, working, putting their energy and passion into something they believe. But we need to clarify very well what we believe in first. And if we believe in a beautiful world that is peaceful, healthy, and with resources and chances for everyone, that will happen. But if we believe that there is a ugly world out there, and corporations are battering us and enslaving us, that's what's happening. So I guess I don't know if you agree that meditation and inner attitude brings the outcome. I don't know if you encourage the daily meditation, which doesn't have to transform us in a Buddhist, but we need to reset. I've noticed many people in the successful world, even in the US, that they have a reset of 5 minutes every morning. And it's not a ritual, it's not something extraordinary, it's just going inside. My question is, because I have to get to the question, if you agree that an inner universe must be cultured before the outside world.
Well, I think, thank you.
Sorry, is there time for question and answer? We ask and John answer. Please, do it.
Thank you, but yes, I meditate every day. I meditated for 5 minutes before coming on the stage. I wanted to keep some time. I think it's very important that inner knowledge, that inner satisfaction, and that's really what I was talking about, passion, because that's how we get to our passion. So thank you for bringing that up. I deeply encourage that. It's both what's in or out there, but I think, what I'm finding across the planet now, is the inner sense of being in people across the planet is changing. We're really moving. Everywhere I go, people are studying yoga, meditation, prayer, and so on. So it's happening. We're having an awakening, this consciousness, this process of penetration. Thank you. We have one more.
Thank you. My name is Miti. I have a very short question. Is the love deficit a cause of global crisis?
Say again.
Is the love deficit a cause of global crisis?
Is the love?
Love deficit.
Love deficit. Yeah, thank you. I think, part of the cause of global crisis is this idea of hatred, of anger, of war. It's their fault. They're the bad ones. The communists' fault, it's the Muslims' fault, it's ISIS's fault, it's somebody else's fault, it's the corporation's fault. It's always our fault. We're all in this together. It's nobody's fault, but we're all in this together. There's no them and us. There's no environment. Let's protect the environment. No, we are the environment. So to feel that we're all in this together, and yes, love, the peace, it's a life economy. It's about a love economy. We need to open it up. What do all human beings want more than anything else? Love, acceptance. So let's work for that. That should be where we go now. That's the next step. And I'm just going to answer one more question that you haven't asked yet, but so far every time I've spoken, I've gotten this, people haven't asked a question necessarily, but they come up when I'm suddenly looks and ask me, so John Perkins, why are you still alive? So I'm going to answer that question. When I first stopped being an economic hitman, I started to write a book about that life and about. I tried to contact other people who've been in that same business or who have been jackals, and then I was contacted, and my life was threatened. And my daughter was born in 1982, and they threatened her life too. At about the same time, I was asked to go out to dinner by the president of the large consulting firm in Boston and New York, Stone & Webster. And he said, you have a great job, Perkins. You have a great resume as the chief economist of one of his rivals. We'd like to use your resume in proposals. You don't have to do any work for us. Just let us use your resume. And I'd like to pay you $500,000. Tomorrow, I'll write you a check. Consultants retainer. Just don't write that book. So my life is being threatened. My daughter's life is being threatened by people I take seriously. I've seen them kill presidents. And at the same time, I'm offered $500,000 not to write a book. What would you do? I took the money. Yes. Took the money, and I have to say that I didn't buy a new car, a big house. I invested the money in working with indigenous people in the Amazon, the very things that started the Pachamama movement throughout the work that I did there. And so it wasn't against my contract to write those books. I just couldn't write the book about economic development. And then 9/11. On 9/11, I was in the Amazon. When I came home, I went to ground zero, and I looked into that smoldering pit, and I knew I had to write a book. But this time I decided I wouldn't tell a soul, it wouldn't be an expose, I wouldn't contact other economic hitmen. I would write a personal confession, and I did it in secret. And once that book is written and out there, it's just assured policy. So once the book is written and it gets out there, the people who don't want my information to get out are the last people who want to kill me, because if somebody kills me today, they'll sell many, many, many more books. And that's the opposite of what they want. So that's why I'm still alive. That's the short version.
Just a quick question. My name is Paul, and I was wondering whether what you've been talking about and what you've been writing about doesn't contradict what the students learn now in school. So it would be quite difficult for them to process, I guess. Would you think it would be useful for the students of today to conceive the world of tomorrow without taking into consideration the things that we take for granted such as a given, such as government, for example, or central banking, or banking in general, and stuff that they basically are learning in school, and just try and imagine something different with of limits.
Absolutely. I think we have to say there are no limitations. And I have a feeling that it's not contradictory when it's taught in the school, because I spent time with the dean here, and we talked about these things. And I think maybe somewhat different, and it's a new paradigm, but you can use the same tools as taught in the school to move into this new paradigm. So yes, there are no limits. We must think outside the box. We must think outside limitations and realize that it's all possible. And the world that we've created recently. It's not been that good. We've done amazing things. We've created incredible technology, medicine, art, music, but we've gone too far. And now it's time to move into a new arena. And we can use the tools that we're taught in the school, but think outside that box to move into a new paradigm. Thank you. One more.
The last one.
Okay.
My name is Isu. We know that pretty much every country in the world has a central bank as a private institution, but just like the Federal Reserve. And when a central bank is a private institution, they have a lot of power, more power than the government. We already talked about how corporations shall be controlled and how we can boycott, but how do you regulate a central bank? Because they have more power than the government, they have the money, they have everything. So how do you regulate this type of institution?
Well, I think that's not my field of expertise. First of all, I think the short answer is you don't regulate the central bank, you get rid of it. We come up with a new system, this resource-based economy, resource-based currency. How do we make that happen? That's for you to decide. You've got that passion. I can't answer all these questions, you know. It's interesting to me that I wrote a book. I see my job. I understand the old system. I see how we're moving into this new system. My job is to expose the old, open the opportunity, and inspire for the new. It's your job now to go out and make it happen. You're a lot younger than me. You get more time and energy than I have. I want to see you make that happen. But I think, maybe it's about regulating the central banks, but I think more important, let's get rid of the central banks. Let's come up with a new system that's much better than it's not based on anything like that. And so, thank you, but I know we got to bring this to a close. And I have to say, I've got other commitments later this afternoon, so I'm going to have to leave around 3:30, which is in about 20 minutes. And I want to sign some votes, so if we can move through that fairly rapidly, I'd appreciate it, because I think that it's been a long trip here, and I just would love to be with you guys. And I just want to say again that I think this is the most incredible time in human history, that every one of us ought to be so grateful that we're alive right now. We're so blessed to be in this time with the opportunity for a huge change. Thanks again for being here with me.
Answering very short, yes or maybe. Introducing, comprising in the national constitutions of nature rights. Do you consider that could be an appropriate way to resolve some challenges?
Absolutely. Putting in the Constitution the rights of nature. Ecuador did it, a country that I'm very fond of. Ecuador did it, Bolivia's done it. Every country needs to get it here in Romania. Yes, absolutely. Fight for that. Make the school lead. You can make the school be a leader in that movement.
Thank you very much. We are waiting for you for some signing. Thank you very much.
China everywhere need to make a new set of standards for our corporations. It is not about maximizing profits. It's about making a return on investment and creating a better world for everyone. Now I want to know what you're feeling. Are you ready to go out there and make sure the corporations do that? Yes. That wasn't very enthusiastic. Are you ready to get the corporations to make a better world for you and your children? Yes! That's better. Let me hear it a little louder. Are you really ready? Yes! Thank you, Romania. Yes. And I have to tell you that across this planet, wherever I go, including in China, in India, in Nepal, in Tibet, in Ecuador, in Brazil, in Argentina, in the United States, our audience is saying the same thing. We are ready. You're not alone. But I think here in Romania you have an amazing opportunity. Because you're a country in the middle, you're on this cross. And you've already shown the world that you can take a leadership role by stopping this terribly destructive gold mining in Russia, Montana. You've shown you can do that. There are better ways to make a living. There's better ways to increase an economy. You here have this beautiful country. I've been traveling across it, and I'm so impressed. And I'm so impressed with the people here. I know there's depression, I know there's fear, I know there's worry about the future. You've got an election coming up, there's a lot of discontent, there's a lot of accusations of corruption. Microsoft. I live in Seattle, where Microsoft is located. There's a lot of accusations, there's a lot of concern, but above all, what comes through to me is what you've accomplished. What you've accomplished with Gabrielle Gold and stopping them from creating a huge lake of cyanide, turning a beautiful valley into a lake of cyanide. You stopped that. And you're fighting Chevron. Chevron is a criminal organization, in my opinion. You need to fight them. And fracking. You don't need fracking. There's better ways to get energy through fracking. You are taking a leadership role. I have friends in Chile, South America. And in Chile just recently they passed laws prohibiting gold mining operations. My friends in Chile have told me that Romania is the inspiration. They've been reading about what you did here with Gabrielle Gold. They've been inspired. So it's time to move into a better world, a new world, a world our children will thank us for. And you're in a leadership position. So I want to take just a few moments now to talk about these prophecies, because, as was mentioned, I've done a lot of work with indigenous people, starting in the 1960s when I was in the Peace Corps living in the Amazon, deep in the Amazon with indigenous people. And I was dying at one point, and an indigenous shaman saved my life. He saved my life by teaching me that I had a bad mindset toward the food I was eating there and the things I was drinking, and I was getting sick, but I wasn't getting sick because of the food or the drink. I was getting sick because of my attitude, mindset. And once I understood that, I could move beyond it. And after I got healthy, the shaman then demanded for payment that I become his apprentice, his student. And it opened the doors for me after that as I traveled around the world to Indonesia, to Iran, to Egypt, to many other places, to study with other shamans. And one of the things I discovered was that in every indigenous culture where I went, and I studied with indigenous cultures on every continent on this planet, except Antarctica, where there aren't any indigenous cultures. And every one of these cultures has a prophecy that this is the time for the opportunity for tremendous transformation, for moving into a new era of human evolution. And I'm just going to tell you a couple of those prophecies. So I'll start with one that probably many of you have heard of, the Mayan prophecy of 2012, which Hollywood and other people have tried to portray as a doom prophecy. It's not at all. It's a very optimistic prophecy. This prophecy comes from the Popol Vuh, which is the ancient sacred text of the Mayans, like the Bible. The Popol Vuh. And in the Popol Vuh, it states that way back in the ancient history, there was a leader, a king, a divine king whose name was Seven Macaw. Seven Macaw. Macaw is a big bird. That was his name. And he was characterized by brutality, by exploitation, by violence, by materialism. And a boy and a girl, twins, came along. They're known as the hero twins. And they cut off the head of Seven Macaw and threw it into a basket. And they replaced Seven Macaw with a new leader, whose name was Hunahpu. And Hunahpu is characterized by compassion, cooperation, spirituality. And I was taught by these Mayan teachers back in the 70s when I worked with them that this prophecy is a metaphor for these times. That we have entered the time when it's time for all of us to cut off the head of the old way, the way of Seven Macaw, of brutality, violence, exploitation, materialism. Cut off the head and replace it. Replace Seven Macaw with a new paradigm, the new era, which is characterized by cooperation, compassion, spirituality. But the prophecy says that the leader will not cut off his own head. Your president won't cut off his own head. Neither will my president, Obama. He won't cut off his head. We, the people, the boys and girls, the hero twins, we, the women and men, have to do it. We have to take the responsibility. You can't just blame your leaders. You have to take the responsibility. And I think particularly in a university like this, which is training and teaching the leaders of Romania and many other places for the future, this is where the responsibility starts. We are the ones who must cut off the head of the old system and replace it with the new. And the reason that 2012 was so important, in fact, there's a date, December 21st, 2012, that was told way back thousands of years ago. The Mayan astrologist said this is a very important date, and the reason is because on December 21st, 2012, the sun enters the center of the Milky Way. The star system is called the Milky Way. There's a dark hole in the middle of the Milky Way, and on December 21st, 2012, the sun entered that hole. And that was seen as symbolic of the head of the old times being thrown into the basket. The sun going into the hole of the Milky Way. Mayan astrologists thousands of years ago said that that would happen on December 21st, 2012, and it did. And so that is seen as a key time in this transition period. So we have really now entered this time when it's right for you, the women and the men, to take control, to cut off the old head of the old way and replace it with the new. That's the Mayan prophecy from Central America. There's another prophecy from the Amazon and the Andes. It's called the Eagle and the Condor. And that prophecy says, back in the midst of time, and this prophecy was stated about 2,000 years ago or more, and back then they said, back in the midst of history, back a long time ago, human societies decided to take two different paths. One was the path of the condor, which they said was the path of the heart, the path of passion, of intuition, of art. We might even say the feminine path. And the other was the path of the eagle, which was said to be the path of the mind, the brain, industry, science. Maybe we call that the male path. And the prophecy said that the two societies, these two branches of human society, would go in different directions for many years. And then in the fourth Pachacuti in the Quechua language of the Andes, the Incan language, means a 500-year interval. In the fourth Pachacuti, which began in about 1500, the eagle and the condor peoples of the world would come together and clash. And the eagle would be so powerful that it would practically drive the condor into extinction, but not quite. Now we know that happened. 1492, Columbus. After that, the industrialized people of the world, the Europeans particularly, practically drove the indigenous people into extinction, but not quite. The prophecy then goes on to say that in the fifth Pachacuti, 500 years later, the year 2000, the opportunity arises for the eagle and the condor to fly together, to dance in one sky, to mate, and to create a new species, us. This new species may look the same, we may not change the way we look, but it's about a new consciousness. And we know this has happened. So beginning in the 1990s, people in Europe, people in the United States, people in the Eagle culture began to take a strong interest in indigenous cultures, in shamans. That's when I wrote books on shamanism. And it's continued. And the shamans and the indigenous cultures came out of hiding and offered to share their knowledge. So we know this is happening. But once again, the prophecy doesn't say that new consciousness will happen. It says we must come together. You and I must make it happen. We must take actions to make it happen. All the prophecies say this. And I'll just share one more, because it's from the other part of the world. I talked about the Americas. This is from the Himalayas. This is the Buddhist prophecy of the Himalayas. And that prophecy says that the 14th Dalai Lama is the last. Well, this one's the 14th. And I've always wondered, what does that mean? Is he really the last? And I had a strange piece of good luck that several years ago. I was leading a group of 33 people into Ladakh, which used to be part of Tibet and now is an Indian protectorate. Unlike the Chinese part of Tibet, the Dalai Lama is allowed in Ladakh. He goes there. I was there with 33 people, and the Dalai Lama happened to be there also. And on the last morning, as the 33 people in my group and I are in the airport of Leh Ladakh, about to fly to Jammu, India, we're sitting in the airport very early in the morning, and the Dalai Lama comes waltzing in. He wasn't actually waltzing. The Dalai Lama comes in with his entourage, and under his arm, he's carrying my book, Shapeshifting, which is quite astonishing. This is one of the books that Alexander mentioned, in fact, occurred. And so somebody in our group talked to his secretary, and to make a long story short, the Dalai Lama invited me to sit with him on the airplane for an hour as we flew over the Himalayas, in the front seat of the 727, Boeing 727. So we're sitting there together, and I say to the Dalai Lama, Your Holiness, I've heard the prophecy that the 14th Dalai Lama is the last, and you're the 14th. And he said, yes, I know. I've heard that prophecy too. And so I said, well, what do you make of it? What do you think? And he said, I'm not sure, but I think maybe it means that I'm the last Dalai Lama from the Himalayas. Maybe I'm the last Buddhist Dalai Lama. Maybe I'm the last male Dalai Lama. And I said, well, where do you think the next Dalai Lama might be from? And he said, well, that's why I'm reading your book. Because I think the next Dalai Lama, I think she or he may be from the Amazon or the Andes. Well, this really blew my mind. Because I don't know anybody in the Amazon or Andes who knows anything about all the gods and goddesses, the Dakinis and the wrathful deities in the Buddhist tradition. So I couldn't quite figure this out. But I didn't ask him at the time. However, at the end of the flight, the Dalai Lama invites me and my group of 33 people to his house in Dharamsala 2 days later to spend the day in his living room talking to him. But we had plans to go to Delhi to visit the museum. What would you have done? Would you have gone to the Dalai Lama or the museum? Exactly. So 2 days later, we're all of us, the 33 of us, sitting in the living room of the Dalai Lama in his home in Dharamsala. And he comes in, and he greets us, he welcomes us, and he says, I just want to make one thing perfectly clear. Don't become a Buddhist. The world doesn't need any more Buddhists. The Dalai Lama said this. But he added, but do practice the Buddhist principles of compassion, cooperation, and love. And then I got it. What the Dalai Lama is really saying about the next Dalai Lama is maybe it'll be a woman or a man who doesn't really know anything about Buddhism, but understands all the principles of Buddhism, and those are what's important. The ideas of compassion, cooperation, love. And later as we talked, it became very clear that the Dalai Lama is not terribly happy with the male hierarchy in the Buddhist tradition. And you know, all of these prophecies emphasize the importance of the feminine, of you women taking more and more control, bringing the receptivity, the nurturing power of the feminine, the womb aspects of the feminine, up into more control, more power, more importance, running more things, more corporations, more governments. And it's also about us men allowing our feminine to come up more, to really feel the compassion we have. And these are three prophecies. It's the prophecy of the Mayan people of Central America, 2012, the prophecy of the Eastern Encounter of South America, and the prophecy of the 14th Dalai Lama from the Himalayas. All of them are telling you that you're born in a time with the opportunity for tremendous transformation, for elevating to a higher level of consciousness, rising up. But you have to make it happen. We have to do this together. So I just have a few more minutes and then I'll open this to questions and discussions. But I just want to talk a little bit about what can you do personally? What can each of us do personally? Well, I think, first of all, it's important to understand that this new empire that we have is ruled by corporations. And the corporations are ruled by you. They're not really ruled by their chief executive officers. They're ruled by the customers, the people who buy their goods and products, and those who invest in them. You have power over corporations. We all do. In the way that you shop, and also it's important to send messages. And email makes it easy to send messages to corporations. Let the corporations that are doing a good job, that are working toward making a better world, know that you want to buy from them and you keep up, that you're doing a good job. Let the ones that are not doing that know that you will not buy from them. Send them emails. Let them know. Their executives know what the emails say. They don't read all the emails, but they get matrices every month telling them what the emails say. You have power. I think about how when I was in college many years ago, there was apartheid in South Africa. We boycotted corporations that supported it. And apartheid ended pretty much. We had terribly polluted rivers in the United States, and I think you did here and forced corporations to clean them up. They did it because we wouldn't buy from them if they didn't. We forced corporations to open their doors wider to women and minorities. When I went to business school in Boston in the late 60s, there were 250 students in my class. 5 of them were women. 5 out of 250. Now there's more women than men in that school, and I look out here and see a lot of beautiful women. Things are changing because we forced them to change. And we now must take this to a new level. And we must force the corporations to change from their goal that was defined by Milton Friedman from maximizing profits to a goal of making a better world. And another Nobel Prize winner in economics, Joe Stiglitz, who happened to have also been chief economist at the World Bank, he says the same thing. That we must force corporations to take responsibility for making a better world. Stiglitz says it's not what Friedman said. It's a new world now. That we must force those corporations. So we can do it as consumers, as investors, and many of you will be in high positions in corporations. You can make that happen. Remember, corporations don't have a conscience. It's just what we give them. I've known a lot of corporate executives, and I don't know any evil ones. I don't know any sociopaths. I'm sure there's some out there, but I don't know them. I know corporate executives that want to make investors if that's what we want. We're only going to buy from the ones that make a better world. So one of the things we can all do is work on changing corporate mentality, that mindset, that consciousness in corporations. No more, it's all about maximizing profits. Instead, it's about making a decent rate of return and creating a better world. Beyond that, what can each of you do? What can 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 you do? You can follow your passions. I don't know what your passions are, but each one of you out there has passion. I know that. And each one of you out there has skills. I know that. I have a passion for writing and hopefully for some skills. But you have passions for things and skills. And you're only successful if you follow your passions. If you take a job that doesn't satisfy your passions, you may make a lot of money, but you won't be successful. You won't be prosperous. Because prosperity demands more than money. It demands a clean soul, a good conscience, to know that you're doing the right thing. I was an economic hitman. I made a lot of money. I traveled around the world first class, and I drank a tremendous amount of alcohol. I took a lot of value. I was very unhappy. I was miserable. Now I don't make very much money. I still travel around the world, but I don't fly first class anymore. What? What about drinking? Eating? Drinking? I have a couple of beers when I'm in Romania because you have such good beer here, but I don't drink very much. Just a few beers. Thank you. Do you have one to offer me? Okay. So, I don't live that way anymore. I don't make a lot of money. But I'm really happy because I get to hang out with you guys. I get to hang out with Pachamama, Romania, and Andrea and Sylvia, the Heritage Foundation, and with the Dean of the school, and the Rector, and the Vice Rector, and it's a great life. So what I want to say to you is follow your passions and use your skills. And whatever your job is, whatever your passions and skills are, let's all commit to heading for the same destination. The destination of creating a world that our children and grandchildren will want to inherit. Of creating an environmentally sustainable, socially just, spiritually fulfilling world. And those are the three goals of the Pachamama lands. Environmentally sustainable, socially just, spiritually fulfilling world. If we all use our individual passions and skills, but we head to the same destination, we'll get there. Guaranteed. And I really encourage you all to join movements. Join the Pachamama Romania. Join the Heritage Foundation. Join whatever movement seems right. Join the movement to stop the mining at Rocha Montana. Join the movement to keep Chevron out of Romania. Join whatever movement appeals to you. A movement to save birds, a movement to save cockroaches. I don't care. Join movement because when people come together, it's powerful. And you here in Romania have started a new movement that's about the rights of nature. You've shown them in the demonstrations in the streets against gold mining. This is powerful. You will be a leader, so as you move forward, you get so many opportunities here in the field of ITT, in the field of agriculture, in the field of alternative energy, in the field of new technologies, in the field of the rights of nature, and using this country as an example of how the new economy is going to develop, this new life economy. When I was in China, and this is the last thing I'm going to talk about, when I was in China recently, I was lecturing, I was keynoting at a large conference of Chinese business leaders, like many of you. And as I hung out with them later, they kept telling me, you know, China created a miracle. We are the only country in the history of the world, as far as we know, that's had double-digit economic growth for 3 decades. A miracle. It came at a terrible price socially and environmentally. A terrible price socially and environmentally. But we learned we can create a miracle. Now we, the new generation, we're going to create a miracle and be the greenest country on the planet. We're going to be the greenest. Well, I want to tell you in Romania, don't let that happen. Let Romania be the greenest. You business students, you other people out there, make Romania be the greenest. And I'll tell the Americans the same. And I'll tell the Turkish people the same. And I'll tell the Ecuadorians the same. Let's have a World Cup of green. Let's see who can be the greenest planet. Let's truly create the spaceship Earth in a way that it will allow us human beings to thrive, to enjoy an environmentally sustainable, socially just, spiritually fulfilling world. And so, this is your time. We're at the time of the prophecies. And it comes together here with people like you, who are knowledgeable, who are the leaders now and who will be in the future. This is the time to move into this new world. And I want to leave you with a final quote. So the Dalai Lama, when we were sitting with him in his living room, somebody asked him this question. They said, you know, a writer in the United States has recommended that we all take some time off, 5 minutes, 10 minutes off on a certain date at a certain time to pray for peace. What do you think of that, Your Holiness? And the Dalai Lama said, well, it's good to pray for peace, to meditate on peace, but if that's all you do, it's a waste of time. You also must take appropriate action every single day. And I think that's why we're all here together. Every one of us to commit to praying for a better world and to take appropriate action every single day. I think we're here so that my 7-year-old grandson, in about 6 decades, when he's approximately my age, can say, thank God, all those people came together in Bucuresti, Romania, back in 2014, and every one of them committed